It's a very interesting start to Breakfast Extra this morning, and why not? Because we wanted to highlight some of the very interesting people, colors, vibrant commerce that happens inside of this space here. It's called Ladipo Market, and if you stick around on the show, we get to tell you how it all started, how it began, and how people trade and make a living from this space. One of the biggest, in fact, they say the biggest auto spare parts market in Africa. Well, it's an unusual welcome, but I'll say it all the same. Welcome to Breakfast Extra.
The market is more than 30 years old. We started here in Dabiri Plaza called Ladipo Rostoro Production before it expanded to so many other units today. We have about 43 different units that make up Ladipo Market. Ladipo Market started here based on the concept of an average demand on trading community of auto spare parts. Like I said, because it's entirely an auto setting. Ladipo is the biggest auto market we have all of West Africa. And it's a company, we always say it's Kukumba Store. Basically, though there are new ones anyway, but it's a home of fairly used parts. Ladipo Market is a place you can come, you see whatever you are looking for. There are a lot of importers of varieties of parts, spare parts. There is a place you come, you see whatever you are looking for to fix your cars.
What we do basically here is automobile. And when it comes to the automobile, there are a lot of things that is involved in automobile. You have the body parts, you have the engine, you have what we call the underneath, you have the horn, you have the roof. Anything about motor is basically what we do here.
Well, I'm not a Ladipo, but good morning and welcome to Breakfast Extra. And of course, Mizuno is here. It's not at
Studio Magic.
Yeah, there we go.
Here I am again. How did that happen?
Oh my goodness, but welcome to Breakfast Extra, by the way. We're definitely going to bring you that full package all the way from Mushin, rather Ladipo. Ladipo is close to Mushin. They share a boundary.
Same place.
There we go, same place. So we're going to bring you all of that later on during the course of the program. But again, welcome. And happy Sunday to you.
Yes, indeed. Happy Sunday to everybody out there. Because we're going to be bringing you top-notch stories, making headlines today, and of course, a deep dive into issues shaping our country. And we have a packed show, once again, like we did from yesterday.
As always.
Always feel good, insightful discussions and also critical conversations.
Yes, indeed. We're going to be touching on illegal immigrations today. We'll be exploring the shocking situation where Nigerian girls who were repatriated from Mali have returned to the country despite efforts by NIDCOM to rehabilitate them. Would also focus on governance in Nigeria as former presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar advocated for a 6-year single presidential term. And also when we head to Focus Africa later on the program, we're going to zoom in on South Africa's rising gun violence and the resulting protests by e-hailing drivers. So it's going to be quite a busy morning for you. So I would say grab your coffee and get started.
So are you throwing that to me? Sorry. Do it again.
I would say grab your coffee.
Let's get started. Let's do the dailies this morning. And of course, we have, I think, the Punch newspaper coming straight at us first up. Let's check out the Punch newspaper for this morning with the headlines. Now, the Punch newspaper's got this headline here. Sunday Punch, explosion, gunshots, mar Rivers LG polls and APP clears 22 councils. Very interesting take here. At the very top for the Punch, Israel, Hezbollah war, Nigerians trapped in Lebanon cry out for help. And I go with police, government officials to negotiate with bandits, says Sheikh Gumi. And marketers, refiners demand details as Naira for crude deal begins. Husband kills pregnant wife over suspected affair with brother. Oh, that's what Sunday evening reads are made for. And fake sponsorships, fraudulent care homes exploit UK crisis to defraud desperate Nigerians. Finally, on the page of the Sunday Punch for you, I considered suicide after being impregnated by rapists as physically challenged hairstylist. That's a very, very sad story to hear.
Very sad indeed.
Moving
More
on
from
now.
Sunday Punch now to our next story that is making, and this time it's The Nation. And the very first one that jumps at you there is the Development Commission Southwest leaders chart way forward. Tough times over soon, says Tinubu. APC begins mobilization for future polls. Akande, Olusi, public office holders detached from party. That story is on page 5. At the top there, federal government begins sale of crude refined petroleum products in Nigeria. Initiative step towards economic sustainability, currency stability. And that's from Edu. You're going to find that. That's Wale Edu there. You're going to find that story on page 6. At the bottom there, explosions, protests, boycott, Rivers local government election. Jonathan, crisis is threat to democracy, peace in Niger State. APP wins 22 out of 23 chairmanship seats. PDP, APC stay away. Thugs raise Aki Sykes' office as Akwa Ibom holds local government election. That story is on page 4. I didn't ask Christians to stop tithing. That's from Adeboye there. Adeboye, you can find that story on page 5. Ondo orders evacuation as flood wreaks havoc. That story, havoc there, the story is on page 6. You can find all this and more on The Nation. Well, they're raising the alarm, and they were saying that the floods were coming, and they mentioned all the states.
Well, hey, perhaps maybe next time a better forewarning, I guess. About the Christians stopping tithing, I'm very, very curious. As in, why did they stop? Was there a memo from heaven saying we're not getting your tithes?
Economic issues, Messina.
Yeah, okay, hush, hush. Let's move on now. What are we moving on to this morning? We're going to the Daily Independence for a Sunday here, and the Sunday Independence, mind you. A big headline here. Rivers LG polls for Bar triumphs as 22 APP candidates emerge winners. Explosion rock much anticipated election. Jonathan raises the alarm over potential crisis. This is strange regarding the explosions. Somebody had explosions ready for the elections, just waiting to make things happen. I was very shocking. Well, not really. But didn't they learn from it? They'll see how peaceful that went. In fact, we thought this was a new era for Nigerian elections. But unfortunately, Rivers State again. Yay.
Yay.
That's sarcasm, by the way. Next one here. Experts divided over tax incentives for oil gas sector. Nigeria trapped in policy crisis, says Akinyemi. And at the bottom, activists lampoon Tinubu over planned youth confab, say it's a laughable waste of resources. We heard plenty of that one from yesterday. Juwon was here in the studio with us, and that was his rhetoric as well. CSOs unite against detention of 2,412 peace protesters, say Tinubu's government allergic to criticism, insists protest is fundamental human right. At the very top for the Sunday Independence, hardship, where deprived the palliatives from FG pensioners lament, and PDP crisis, we're prepared to deal with all complaints fairly and firmly, says the disciplinary committee, and flood wreaks havoc in Ondo. And that's it. It's going to keep coming all the way down to the Niger Delta. This is a yearly thing, sometimes even perennially.
Yeah.
But I think the worst hit would be the deltas.
Oh, definitely. It will be the deltas. But we're done with Sunday Independent. We'll move on to our next paper, and that is the Sunday Vanguard. And the very first one that comes at you, same with, I'm sure it's this story is on every dailies that you can find. Gunshots, bombings, protests as Wike Fubara power struggle escalates. APC secretariat attacked. Governors, candidates sweep elections. Electoral Commission's office burnt in Akwa Ibom. You can find that story on page 4. Enugu demolishes mansion linked to kidnappers. That story is on page 5. Doyin Sola showcases maturity. Who is that? That story is on page 18. Moving on. Pray you don't fall ill as cost of drugs. Pray you don't fall ill as cost of drugs. Healthcare surge. That story is on page 7. Ayedati aid meets bereaved parents, and that's regarding the Fauye student's death at UniMet. That story is on page 25. And NMA says probe report ready. Hidden scars of Colonel Majiko Dumi. You can find that story is on page 6, on page 10. There's a statement there, a quote there that says, I was betrayed, jailed, dismissed from the army because I indicated interest in Milad. You can find the story on page 10. At the top there, Tinubu, my plan ahead of 2027. You're just 1 year in, relax. And right next to it there, Atiku raises dust with single-term rotational presidency. That story is on page 13. Tight. Catholics, others seize on Pastor Adeboye's apology. He has found light and truth. That story is on page 5. Governor Eno's daughter succeeds deceased mom as Akwa Ibom First Lady. That story is on page 5. Well, my heart goes out to her. It's so very sad news. They're losing a mother, but becoming the First Lady is just congratulations to her. Do we say congratulations?
Yeah, well.
It's bittersweet, isn't it?
I was a silver lining, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's as much as we can take for the dailies this morning. Thank you very much for joining us for a Sunday edition here for Breakfast Extra. Let's get started. We've got a very interesting big story, big report as well coming your way, and an extra special all the way down the line. Do stay tuned. We'll be back to start our first big report.
Good morning once again and welcome to Breakfast Extra. It's time for the big report segment, our very first big report for today. And today we're heading to Borno State. We're facing a public health crisis exacerbated by recent floodings. A cholera outbreak has gripped the state with hundreds of cases already confirmed and spreading fast. Health authorities have confirmed at least 17 cases in the capital, Maiduguri, but the overall numbers are alarming, with 451 cases now reported across the state. The devastating floods have left many areas vulnerable, overwhelming sanitation systems and contributing to the rapid spread of the disease.
Now, efforts to control the outbreak are underway, but with widespread displacement and contaminated water sources, the challenge is immense. Local health officials are scrambling to contain the situation, while relief efforts struggle to reach the most affected areas. In today's report, we will examine with our News Central correspondent, Dabiri-Erewa, who will be joining us, the combination of environmental disaster and public health emergencies that have pushed or that have caused this cholera outbreak. Joining us now, we have with us Dabiri-Erewa, UNICEF Chief Maiduguri Office, who's joining us. Dabiri, you are welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
And of course, we also have Dabiri-Erewa, who is our News Central correspondent that filed in the report. Dabiri, you're welcome. Good morning to you.
Umar, first of all, good morning. Let me start with you. You are the reporter who brought us the report. I mean, how difficult was it, just, going on ground there, and just give us a situation as far the water sources and how, the water, the flooding has affected the sanitation and sanitary equipment in that area to have caused this current state of emergency regarding the cholera outbreak.
Yes, to take us to memory lane, the 10th of September was the day the flood occurred. It caught people unaware during the night time. And of course, people are not ready and not even aware of the incident. So it's a sort of emergency where so many things happened, so many people lost their lives, and so many people were stuck, so many people were rescued, so many stories to be told with regard to the flood disaster. And talking about the incident of the cholera outbreak, even in the onset of the flood disaster that devastated the state, the government was aware of an possible incident of outbreak of diseases, and even health partners, the UNICEF, the World Health Organization, UNFPA, and others alike were aware of possible outbreak of diseases. That is why some of them even donated some kits and cholera vaccines, even from the federal government to the state government, in order to tackle the situation. However, it was unfortunate that some cases were recorded. Over 400 cases were suspected cases were recorded, and people are battling now with what to eat, how to survive, and of course, for women particularly, the issue of sanitary kits or sanitation and hygiene is a very big problem in this issue. And the flood contains so many things inside, diseases, good things, bad things, a lot of things. So it causes a very serious health concern. At the onset, we've had announcements or jingles with regard to people should start avoiding meat, because some unscrupulous elements were even animals that died during the flood were sold within the Maiduguri metropolis, which the government says people should avoid, and people should avoid vegetables. But unfortunately, people are struggling to survive. Their houses are down. They have to eat what they see. So possibly it led to the outbreak, and this is the situation that people are struggling with now.
Mar, many thanks for just capturing that. Let me turn now to our second guest here. You are part of the local response, to this outbreak and also to the flooding by extension. Let's ask what the response has been like, and how you are just coping with all of the side effects and, for example, this cholera outbreak, or just on the sidelines of the aftermath of the flooding.
Yes, thank you. So currently, UNICEF, government, other partners, we are responding to the cholera outbreak. And like my colleague mentioned, we actually expected this. Once you have flooding, some waterborne disease and other disease, for example, the number one problem for now, I've been in the camps even yesterday night, is malaria. And we are having very severe malaria because of mosquitoes. The stagnant water has allowed the multiplication of mosquitoes, and malaria is really a serious issue. But with the cholera, we have prepared and we have treatment. As you have said, we have been really grateful right now. Till today, we didn't have any mortality. This shows that the management of cases is very good, because death from cholera really can come from lack of management.
All right, Garilda, I've got a question regarding the disease and how it's transmitted. First off, we know it's a waterborne disease. And we also know that the flood is moving to other parts of the country, it's flowing toward the delta. Could we expect more of this disease as the water goes along the path which it's flowing currently?
Yeah, so with the floods, there are a few things that you must expect, because especially cholera is part of it anywhere in the world. Waterborne disease is really expected. Also malaria, yes. I was also responding to other countries that were severely affected by floods. And we saw that malaria, in fact, ended up killing more people than people who were killed by the actual floods. And we know that in Nigeria right now we're experiencing outbreak of cholera in several states, including those in neighboring Borno, Yobe, for example, Adamawa, Niger State, which is very like Suleja, which is very close to Abuja. So I think it's very important that people prepare, especially making sure that the hygiene promotion, water is treated, making sure also that you have enough supplies like medicine, antibiotics, personal equipment like boots and gloves, beds, so that you are not overwhelmed. For now, we are supporting really this kind of case management. UNICEF has really given a lot of medicine, beds, tents, and soaps, water. And we are working with the government, as I mentioned, to ensure that we are not overwhelmed. But flood, no one can be really 100% prepared by flooding. So it's really important that whoever is affected, we are able to come together and support them, regardless where they are or whom they are, because no one can be 100% prepared. So in order to save lives at a quick rate, it's best that we put our efforts together so that we can reach as many people as possible, and also we can prepare people as much as possible.
Thank you, Garilda. Umaru, let me come back to you. Umaru, what's been the response from the government or the Ministry of Health? Have they been helping people or the residents get access to clean water or anything else? What have they done?
Yes, first, not only the Ministry of Health, because it's a multi-sectoral approach. The Ministry of Water Resources of the Borno State government, we've seen them making an announcement that any community that is battling with their boreholes or their sources of water supply, they should notify them so that they will repair them. And the good news, in fact, is the state government yesterday inaugurated a committee to assess the level of damage of the Aloe Dam and look into the possibility of addressing the issue of water shortage, because up to now there is spillage at the Aloe Dam, which the government has inaugurated a committee, and we hope the government redoubles its efforts in taking steps so as to avoid other catastrophes like shortage of water, clean drinking water, and so on and so forth. So by and large, but Ministry of Water Resources, the Ministry of Health have announced the reception of over 300,000 vaccines of cholera, and they have raised concern with regard to what people should do, what they should avoid, and they should try to comply with health tips and so on and so forth. So it's good that the government is responding, and of course, not only the government, but development partners, like I've said earlier, right. UNICEF, World Health Organization, Save the Children, and so on and so forth.
Right. Umar, my final question for you as we're about to wrap up this conversation. What's the current state of the flooding in the region? What's the update as the water started to recede? Are people returning back homes? Are people back to rehabilitating and, rebuilding their lives? What is the update?
Yes, the update is that in some areas, the flooding is gone. But in some areas, even the renowned College of Agric now, water is still there. However, the government inaugurated a committee of relief, and they are assessing some of the communities, and they are providing support. It will not reach all, but they have started reaching out, giving cash assistance, food, and other items like blankets and so on and so forth. Although it is not enough for the people, but the government thinks at least it will go a long way to address some of their concerns. But by and large, people are in a very sorry state, and they are grappling to survive because they have lost their means of livelihood. Farmlands were lost. In fact, this is one of the greatest challenge which the government need to step up efforts in utilizing some of the waters for irrigation, so as food security will not be another catastrophe that will destroy this part of the world.
All right then. Garilda, final question, and if we can keep this short, regarding the path of the water as it moves towards the Delta, what advice do you have for the Nigerian government and residents within that path?
Yes, so first of all, Nigerian government works with the partners to identify areas that are possible, for flooding, and they advise the residents, for example, to move. So the first thing is to save lives, that people are not caught up. If they are in the path of the water, then they need to move to a safer place. And that may not be the most comfortable, but it's best to be safe rather than really face the water. But in terms of preparations, I needed to mention that in Bono, for example, we are receiving today 669,000 doses of oral cholera vaccine. And I think in terms of cholera, the vaccine is going to help a lot in stopping transmission. So I think people need to pre-position supplies, making sure that, they can have shelter, they can have accommodation, and they can identify places that they are able to be, especially in terms of water, food, and also to look after the elderly, the young people, especially children and women, and especially also pregnant women. It's best to really prepare to ensure that we can really minimize suffering if we prepare well. Thank you.
Well, I want to say thank you to you, Garilda, as well as Umaru there for just bringing us update on this. We'll definitely keep following the story and just to make sure that the number of cases reduce, within the 1 week, and also that people heed to, healthcare advice and just stay safe and try to consume or try to make sure that their source of water is as clean as possible. Once again, many thanks for joining us. We appreciate you for doing this with us this morning.
Thank you.
It's time for us to get into our first big story for today as we jump into a very, very important story. Just coming off the sidelines of the presidential speech regarding the independence. So we're going to be deep diving into the Nigerian government's latest tax reforms and their impact on clean energy policies. Now, like I said about the speech, President Bola Tinubu's administration has embarked on significant tax overhauls aimed at fostering sustainable economic growth. A critical component of these reforms is the incentivization of clean energy, which aligns with global efforts to transition towards a greener future. Now, the repeal of certain levies on diesel and the removal of value-added tax VAT from 63 essential goods, including energy-related products, are set to alleviate some of the pressures on both consumers and businesses, especially within the energy sector.
Now, these reforms reflect the government's broader push to facilitate the growth of clean energy by offering tax breaks and concessions to encourage investment in renewable energy sources. This is part of a concerted effort to support green projects while reducing Nigeria's dependence on traditional environmentally harmful energy sources. Additionally, the removal of VAT on diesel will ease the financial burden on transport and logistics sector heavily reliant on diesel, thus reducing operational cost for businesses.
And so joining us today to dissect these tax reforms and the critical role they play in advancing Nigeria's clean energy goals is Suraj Oyewale. He is a chartered accountant and tax practitioner. So he'll provide us some insight into how these policies are structured and what they mean for consumers, businesses, and for that cooking gas cylinder in your kitchen. Well, Suraj, thank you so much for joining us and very good morning to you.
Good morning, Judith. How are you?
I'm doing.
Suraj, welcome. Thank you. I'm here too. Suraj, let's get started. How do you see the removal of VAT from diesel contributing to the adoption of cleaner energy sources? Considering diesel's critical role in Nigeria's current energy landscape, we all know, we all use it, we all need it. Almost all of us.
Okay, yeah, thanks once again for having me. And diesel is not a clean fuel, so we need to probably start with that. Whether the production of diesel, which comes one of the products of the hydrocarbon, the petroleum resources, whether the refining process, the processing, which is called refining, and whether the consumption, the utilization of the diesel itself, none of these activities is it's actually a clean energy, it's a clean source of, fuel. But the government is not looking at just the clean energy alone when they are making these tax reforms, because two of the other goals, that the government are looking at are energy security as well as, cost of living, reduction. So I think that this specific reduction, removal of VAT on diesel is not targeting clean energy, but targeting, cost of living, cost of production, because we all know that a lot of activities today depend on diesel, industrial uses, a lot of manufacturing companies depend on diesel to power their plant, power their heavy equipment and all of these things. So, so we can see from a clean energy perspective, this is not something that advances that goal, but the immediate, problem we have at the moment is, high cost of living, inflation, and diesel being a very critical component of the energy supply, of the energy, of the source of energy for production is being incentivized. They are incentivizing this production because, this diesel forms a very, very important part of the whole production process. So that's the angle in which government is looking at. But if you look at those 63 lists, this is just one of them. There are a lot of other things on them which actually tie into the clean energy initiative of government. But this specific one on diesel, it's actually at variance with the with the aim of government to encourage adoption of clean energy sources. But like I said, it's not just about adoption of clean energy. What are our immediate issues at the moment, which is inflation, higher cost of production, and the government needs to tackle that at the moment. So it's a balance between clean energy as well as lower cost of production.
Suraj, I'm so glad you're bringing this up because it takes us to our next question. With the government's tax incentives aimed at clean energy, how visible is it, especially for for transition, for businesses that want to transition, from diesel to renewable energy alternatives in the short term?
Okay, so I mean, if you look at diesel, it serves, it comes handy in three main uses of energy. The first one is transportation. A lot of vehicles, especially heavy-duty vehicles, depend on diesel. We have the logistics. We have because the heavy-duty vehicles actually depend on diesel to power them, and also you have the industrial use because you also have because you have a lot of industries, the construction industry, the agriculture, who use, these industries use a lot of diesel because, the whole process of powering their, equipment actually comes from they use this a lot. But the one that is most relevant is the power generation because most businesses at the moment use, because of the challenges with our electric power supply system, although things are improving, but because of these historical challenges in our power generation system, many businesses have had to resort to diesel as a form of, to power their generator, to power their machine, all of these things. So, so from the transition angle, I think this power generation is an angle in which, transition will come fastest because, we have houses, we have companies, we have small to medium-sized businesses that are now transiting to, solar power, solar powered, processes. You have houses that are completely off grid now, relying on solar. So I think those ones, it's easier for those ones to transit to cleaner energy sources than those ones, maybe the transportation sector. Because how many people can afford electric vehicles, or how many people can actually afford, the vehicles, the alternative sources of energy, which setup cost is very, very high. So at the moment, I believe that it is the power generation angle that, there might be a quick transition, than other uses of diesel.
Okay, so I see what you're saying there. Immediately, it might not be that easy. But if we can take away the much that we spend on diesel for manufacturing, that's something to get away with. However, what if a person was interested in investing in renewable energy? Which one of these tax reforms best tackles that issue of investment in renewable energy?
Okay, there are a number of items on the list that actually renewable energy, focusing. For example, we have the chargers for electric vehicles, the electric vehicle chargers. You have the charging system for heat. You have the batteries for heat. You have the solar panel. We have all of these things are actually, the production of all of these things are exempted from VAT. So those ones have more relevance to the aim of, to the drive of government in achieving this cleaner energy. So I would say that beyond diesel, the other components, they also have the LPG, the cooking gas, so something that is relevant to anybody, So if you are dealing in that, your equipment, instead of paying, let's say, instead of investing, let's say 107.5 million, VAT inclusive, remember the VAT rate in Nigeria is 7.5%. Instead of having to invest 107.5 million on it, that 7.5% component has now been, is now out of it because of the VAT exemption on your cost of, on the equipment that you need to set up all these investments. So I believe that, if you have something that you needed 107.5 million to invest on, now you need just 100 million to invest on it. That's a big incentive to people. So investors will like that, and we hope that this will drive more investors into this space of renewable energy, production and manufacturing, and also even utilization.
Now, of course, this tax reforms is for Nigeria to meet its clean energy goals. But can we actually do this? Can this tax reforms affect the change that we want to see when it comes to global carbon emissions and reducing it when it comes to our quota for our nation?
Okay, you all know that there has been a lot of debate about the energy transition in recent times, and the UN set 2050 as the target for achievement of net zero by countries, but some member countries domesticated their own. In Nigeria, for example, we knew that 2050 is not going to be feasible for us. So Nigeria set its own target of 2060 as the achievable target to achieve that. As a realistic target deadline to achieve that net zero situation. But I think all these policies tie into the effort of government to achieve this. Recently, after we all know there was the COP26 that held in Glasgow in 2021, where many stakeholders, governments all over the world came together and they discussed how they could, move towards a more environmentally friendly world. Okay, and Nigeria, after much of that, Nigeria came back with the energy transition plan, and one of the things they did was to come up with Nigeria Climate Change Act, and all these policies. Now government came up with some tax reforms as an incentive to encourage adoption of these sources of energy. So I believe all of these things tie into the general goal for achieving our net zero by 2060. But I think that 2060 is just that's 36 years away, and I believe that it's something that is actually achievable if the government continues in this drive, not just using tax as one of the ways of encouraging it, but also investing in it themselves and other things that is business for people, that is consumption, that is adoption. So I believe that all these policies tie into the the goal of government, and it looks realistic for me if it continues.
Well, Suraj, first of all, I'm looking at pictures of windmills there, and I'm wondering when Nigeria is going to tap into that kind of energy, because I don't see windmills around. But then in local parlance, there's this: you can lead the horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. Now, you can make tax reforms, you can ask individuals or companies to invest in renewable energy, but are the people willing or encouraged, or are they ready to embrace this kind of energy? Can they even afford it? Let's ask that very basic question, Suraj.
Okay, whether from production angle or from consumption angle, I think there's still problem beyond tax incentives. I agree that tax incentive is just one of the things. You can take, like you said, you can take a horse to the river. You can't make it drink water. Government are doing their own with this tax incentive, but tax is not the only thing that affects investment. In fact, some investors don't even care about tax rate. They just want, a more stable environment. For example, FX. If a foreign investor is coming to Nigeria, for example, to come and invest in such kind of thing, he's not going to be interested in not just the tax, in just the tax rate, what is exempted, what's not exempted, but also how can I repatriate my profit to my own country? Okay, so we have FX issue now comes into the picture, and all those considerations, political stability, and the general environment of doing business. So tax is just one of the many components that investors consider in investing. So we need to get right other things before these things become attractive. And on the consumption, adoption by consumers themselves. Yes, I believe that we also have a long way to go there, because if you look at the cost of these things, how many middle class people, how many lower class people, for example, can actually afford the cost of setting up solar power, for example. So even if the prices reduce, the cost of setup reduces because of the all these incentives, all these tax incentives. What is the purchasing power of people? How many people can afford them? So I believe that there has to be some holistic method, holistic approach in all ramifications before before all these things become habits, because all these things become easy for anybody to to just tap into. Otherwise, we could just be doing all of these things, and it might not get to the target people.
Right. Suraj, I'm so glad you're putting it there, because when we put into concept the lower class individuals, Nigerians, the middle class Nigerians, and even, the middle class has been eroded in the last 1 year when you look at how the soaring cost of living. And so one has to ask the bigger question of whether or not, individuals can even convert their cars from fuel-powered, petrol-powered cars to CNG power car. That's a compressed natural gas, right? And even just, electric vehicles as well, because we understand tax reforms was imposed as well on electric vehicles and CNG. But towing that same line, let's also talk about cooking gas. That was also value-added tax was removed on cooking gas as well. Do you see this affect the price of 1 kg of cooking gas, and what it would mean for homes in terms of payment for cooking gas?
You can cook more.
It should, yes. All of us should cook more. So I think it should, because given the fact that this cooking gas is becoming part and parcel of our life, and many people adopt it. Even this is something that even the lower class, the upper middle class, it's something that is quite attractive to them. So I expect the prices to reduce. It might not be immediate because they have stock that they've bought, at the old price. And the way VAT works is that it gets transferred to the final consumer. So they have to consider the cost. And, when they're selling it, you have to consider the cost, and, it might not immediately transfer to the consumer, to the consumer. So, after a few weeks or months, I expect that the prices of this thing should come down. And the government also needs to work with enforcement, because one of the problems we have in this country is that when some of these policies are done, the people to implementing them just go to sleep. And we have businessmen, we have business people trying to profiteer from this thing and not bringing the price down, not reflecting, keeping the old price rather than reflecting the new realities and all of these things. But in general, we believe that there should be a reduction in these things. In this cooking gas and other components of the other items affected by these tax reforms in the short to medium term.
Now, finally, I have to ask you, right? IMF often, I'm sure year in, year out, every quarter, every 6 months, they remind Nigeria that its tax contribution to our GDP is quite low. Do you still see, with this tax reforms, do you see our tax go, the yearly contribution of tax to the GDP, the country's GDP, go even lower? Or would it be still significant as it were last year?
Good question. There has always been this debate in the tax circle and fiscal policy circle that tax incentive is not the best, way to stimulate growth and encourage, And ordinarily, when you remove tax, from an item, it reduces government collection. What goes in the government purse reduces, because let's say the government collects, let's say 3 billion naira annually from all these items that have not been, let's say the VAT collection on all these items, let's estimate it to be, let's say, 3 billion naira per annum. What that means is that the income to government, the revenue to government, the tax received to government is going to reduce by that amount because of the reduction in VAT, because of the removal in VAT on that. But if you look at it holistically, you realize that these incentives tend to stimulate a sector, okay? You have more investors coming in, we have, more people being able to adopt them. We have more sales. We have more employment. We have, so when you start incentive to stimulate a sector, you get taxes in other ways. For example, when more employment is created in that sector, in the renewable energy, clean energy space sectors, people get paid. People have to pay their personal income tax on their salary. Although that one goes to the state government, but it's still, part of the whole tax bucket. More companies begin to make more profit because their cost of production has reduced. When they make more profit, what that means is that government gets more on their profit. And don't forget, in Nigeria, the cost of, the tax rates on company profits is about 30%. Okay, so that is more tax for government. So it's a give and take situation. Government are in the short term, reducing the taxes, sacrificing the tax revenue they have made in the first. In 1 to 3 years of that policy implementation, to a medium or long term increase in collection of taxes from other sources. So when government uses tax incentives to stimulate a sector, they're looking at the big picture of economic growth. And when the economy grows, you have a situation in which taxes in other forms come to government. And it's not just the taxes. So I believe that, yes, there might be a reduction in our tax to GDP ratio as a result of these things, if they are significant, if that sector is significant. But in the next few years, when the effects begin to come in, then we believe that at that time, the effects come in, the positive effects come in multiple folds, and you have taxes from other sources, you have employment of people, we have, more companies making more profits, more taxes to government, more tax revenue to government as a result of that. So, so that's the thinking of government anytime they come up with some tax, exemption or waiver initiatives. I believe this should work.
So Raj, let's play Back to the Future. Let's take a look at 2030. Africa is expected to at least have completed some or most of its SDG goals. By then, Nigeria would also perhaps be expected to have embraced renewable energy. How prevalent do you think in 2030 renewable energy would be in Nigeria?
I think the adoption is getting fast. 10 years ago, how many houses were using, solar to power their houses? You have more and more houses, domestic level, keen into heat. You have more and more businesses keen into it, and I believe that this is going to continue. And
Do you
I mean,
think it's going to
when we
get
have more
cheaper?
investors
Do you think it's going to get cheaper as we go?
I think it's going to get cheaper. I mean, all these incentives that government are giving, we encourage more investors to come in, we reduce the cost of setting them up, we reduce the cost of production, and I believe that it's going to get cheaper. When it gets cheaper, more people will key into it, and it helps us to move towards our SDG goal.
All right, then. Suraj, I want to say thank you very much for being a part of our breakfast show, first hour here this morning. Thank you for joining us, and of course, we'll be coming back to you many times for more of these very insightful comments and views that you give us. Thank you indeed.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
And that's all that we can take for now. We're going to a short break. When we come back on the other side, there's going to be more. But first, at the top of the hour, Mazino's on standby for the breakfast headlines. Stay here.
Welcome back. Second hour here for Breakfast Extra. In today's big story, we look at an ongoing debate over Nigeria's governance structure following a bold new proposal from former Vice President and presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar. Now, Atiku has written to the National Assembly calling for a constitutional amendment that would implement a 6-year single term for the office of the president. His argument is based on promoting stability and reducing the frequent political and electoral tension that come with the current 4-year term system. This proposal has sparked considerable discussion on whether it could address governance challenges or merely shift the dynamics of power.
So this suggestion has raised eyebrows, especially considering Atiku's history as a multi-time presidential candidate and his potential aspirations for another run at the top office. Supporters and critics alike are dissecting the implications of a 6-year term, its advantages, risks, and what it might mean for future leadership in Nigeria. And so today, we're going to touch on these issues with a panel of experts to get a balanced view of this unfolding political conversation.
Yes, so joining us, we have, that would be Ahmed Musa, who's joining us, Director of the Muslim Committee APC Campaign Council. And of course, we have Devo Korea, Political and Public Affairs Analyst. Gentlemen, you are welcome. Thank you for joining us early this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. We understand that Devo will join us during the course of this conversation. But let me start with you and get your reaction, Ahmed, about Atiku Abubakar's stance. From your perspective as an APC chieftain or part of the APC, how do you view Atiku Abubakar's proposal for a 6-year single term for the presidencies? Does it address any of the governance issues in Nigeria?
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, Atiku's proposal, to me, as an individual, is a welcome development, and not because of his political ambition, maybe because he's getting old, maybe one would think because he wants to run again for another term, that is why he's proposing it. Actually, it's a welcome development. One, because it will cut down, governance, the waste in governance. Every 4 years, you see the president being in office for 4 years. After spending 1 or 2 years, he will be asking for another term in office. If you have a straight 6 years term, you will be focused to, face your programs, your campaign promises to the people. But when you have these 4 years, you see them, after first and second year in office, they'll be asking for another term. They'll be asking to repeat because they have not done this, they have not done this, X, Y, Z. And more so, it will reduce the cost of electioneering campaigns, spending money on INEC every 4 years, So I think for me as an individual, if I will also propose too, it's a welcome development.
Well, Ahmed, that argument is, it sounds okay. But then again, people are arguing that a single term might reduce the accountability of the elected leaders, noting that they are just going to go there one time, grab all they want, and then they're out. You didn't actually put in the sound effect there. But doesn't that seem like a likely or a relevant argument?
But how do you look at that? Even when you give them 4 years term, 8 years term, they still grab whatever they need to grab. Those who wants to grab, those who wants to loot, for me, it's not, I don't think it's something that should be argued. It's a 6-year term, a 6-year single term is supposed to be one of the best for us, but maybe because we still copy the bigger countries like American system of government where we still have 4 years, but they develop their countries. Things are working fine. But here in Nigeria, you have a president in office, things are going bad. Even when the things are going bad, they want to continue in power, And even when they are old, they still want to continue in power, perpetuate themselves in power, make the poor poorer and the rich richer. So for me, I think it's a welcome development.
Well, wanting to remain in power is one thing. For the people to vote them back in is another thing. But we'll have that conversation in just a bit. Devo Okorie has joined us. Devo, you're welcome. I'm wondering if you heard the early part of this conversation with Ahmed Musa. We're talking about Atiku's needing or wanting to go back or wanting the 6-year term. I'm noting that he is a multi-attempt finalist. He has tried multiple times to be president. Now, Devo, what are your thoughts on this, please?
And just noting that it's very interesting that he's calling for a 6-year term, knowing fully well that whilst he was vice president, his president, that's former president Olusegun Obasanjo, also wrote to the House asking that they putting a 3rd term for president to allow for a 3rd term for president.
Devo, please. Do we have Devo? Devo, I'm sorry, if you can hear us, Devo, you might be on mute. I'm hoping that that's not the case, but if you can check your mute button, hopefully that will sort it out. No, we can't hear Devo. Apologies.
Apologies.
Ahmed, let's continue with you. Now, we're still on the issue of it being a grab and run type situation. What could be put in place in terms of policies that could make any elected leader in a 6-year term accountable?
We have not, my brother, we have not really looked at the system we put together to really look at corruption in this country. If we actually want to fight corruption in this country, the system is not really working. You could see, a former governor of Kogi State who was accused by, stealing money to a tune of billions of naira. Wanted to arrest him, wanted to bring him to EFCC. People were aiding him. People in government were also aiding him and abetting. So for me, we have to fix the institution first. The institution has to work. The judiciary has to work. Not by the time you get this judgment in the High Court, Federal High Court in Abuja, you get another one stopping another judgment in the State High Court. Where do we go from here? So first of all, the judiciary has to work. And the institution, the EFCC, all this, we have EFCC, we have the ICPC, they have to work. By the time you arrest a politician, he go back there. Look at some of the ministers that are in this government. Were those ministers, I could refer to some of them, who were senior advocates of Nigeria, who stood for some of these governors in court, stealing money. Some of them are being appointed in this government. And you see they have made a lot of money by, aiding and abetting them in court and standing for them, whereas the institution should be allowed to work so that a governor who steals money, a president who steals money will be jailed the way other countries are doing it. But in this country, no. Nothing like that works. So if the institutions are not working, how do you fight corruption?
Ahmed,
those who put
Ahmed, I hate to call you there, but my brain is doing this thing where I can't marry the two because I'm looking at your designation, your APC, and then seeing you talk about,
Forget about
corruption.
being APC. We are talking for Nigeria. What is APC?
No. This is in no way trying to accuse you, right? I need to make this absolutely clear. This is no way trying to accuse you. But the news that we have seen repeatedly and the arguments in the corporate, or rather in the political narrative, it's very interesting. That it's like talking from both sides of our mouth. Let's just be clear. But first, let me introduce Devo Corey. He's back on. Devo, if you can hear us, please just let us know. Good morning to you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Devo.
We still can't hear you, Devo. Unfortunately, we apologize, but we'll try and sort that out. Judith, you were asking.
So about accountability, right? About accountability. And let's look at the case of all of the other states when it comes to accountability. Do you think that a longer single term is enough? Is a longer single term needed, necessary? Or is 2 terms, because when you look at the conversation itself, a 2-term tenure to achieve the goals and the objectives of a president's manifesto, or a 4-year tenure, to achieve the goals and the objective of the manifesto of a president. The question here is accountability and being able to do the work. Should a longer single term tenure be enough for a president to do the work? Should a single term, a 4-year single term, be enough for them to do the work? Or do they need 8 years to do the work and still leave the people in a state of, more economic decline? In case the last administration, 8 years gone, and now we're here.
Yes, that is an example to you. What did we see in the last 8 years? So when you talk of, we didn't see anything. So a single 6-year term for a president or a governor, to me, like I told you at the beginning of this program, to me is a welcome development. I know other people see it that Atiku maybe still wants to run for another term because of his age. That is why he's proposing it. And I said, no, it is absolutely no. That even former President Jonathan, suggested this while he was in office. A single, was it 7 years term he proposed as at that time. So for me, it's good for us. It will enable a president that is coming who wants to work, who wants to develop the country, to have his programs articulated and, work on them as, they are going. Then when the other person comes, it takes over from there. But in Nigeria, you see, when we have this president, the other president will come and he will abandon the other president's projects. It's not supposed to be so. There are projects done by Babangida, Olusegun Obasanjo, even military era, that are still abandoned in this country. They are not done. So how do you account for that? Is that not part of accountability of a government? So for me, if you have a single year term, I told you first and foremost, it will cost it will reduce the cost of election in this country. Because you don't know, you are in the media, maybe you know or you don't know what we spend in doing election, even campaigns. So if you put all this together, I will say Nigeria is broke. Nigeria will not have money. Nigeria is borrowing. Mm-hmm. If you put all this money together, we can develop. That is why I was telling you on the angle, don't take...
Ahmed, I'm going to come back and take you on the electioneering bit that you just spoke about. But once again, we're going to try for Devo. Devo, if you're there, please, can we hear you? Fingers crossed. Devo? Unfortunately, we're going to have to let Devo go.
The gremlins
on your side. Back to you, Ahmed Musa. Regarding what you said in your first statement when we came to you about the amount that we spend on electioneering and the tension that it causes, would this be fixing anything in that, any factor that's causing these tensions or these amounts that are spent inside of elections? Or is it just kicking the can down the road for another 2 extended years? Because we're still going to come to that. We're still going to spend money. And we're still going to have the same kind of tension. So how about affecting the root causes of these tensions? How's that for size?
I didn't quite get you. I didn't quite get your question.
I will rephrase. I'm asking if Atiku is asking for a 6-year term because of the tensions that come out of elections or the expenditures, the monies that are spent. How about addressing the root causes of these tensions instead of asking for a 6-year term, which seems like just kicking the can down the road for another extended 2 years?
Yes. How do you address it? Like when you make tension, I don't quite get the tension you are talking about. Is it political tension?
Yeah, political, exactly.
Is it the campaign?
Political, yes.
If it's the tension, there must always be tension, my brother and my sister. There must always be tension. People must always agitate for power. And agitating for power is already tension. This person wants to be, this other person wants to be. But the most important thing is we are still coming back to the institution, the police, the soldiers, the security agencies. They are the one who to, look at this tension and crop them and ensure that there is peace. But a situation whereby you see, take for instance, if the IG did not ban the last election in Edo, if the IG did not ban the security network of the governor, they would have used them to, disrupt the election, carry ballot boxes and all of this. But because of the police were deployed to every polling unit, we had 4 policemen in every polling unit, you discover that there was calm, there was peace in the election. There was nowhere one gun was shot. So if we have that in this country, security network, most importantly, then the tension, there's nothing like tension because after every time, there must be election.
All right. Devo Korea, I hope that you're back this time. I understand that you're between a baby boomer and the Gen X generation, but please, I hope your technology is working now.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
loud and clear. There we go.
Hallelujah.
Oh, there we are. What a miracle for a Sunday morning. Devo, good morning to you.
Good morning, Mazino. Good morning, Juliet. Yeah. Some people went to church late.
Well, let's get started, shall we? I mean, we've been talking to our other guest here, Ahmed Musa, just about the suggestion by the presidential candidate and former Vice President Atiku Abubakar for a 6-year single tenure for presidency. First of all, let's get your take on this. And it's interesting coming from him when his own suggestion is quite different from his principal at the time, who was looking for a third year tenure, rather a third term.
Yes, I was saying earlier when you couldn't hear me that if you allow human beings, especially African leaders, they'll want to stay in term for the rest of their life. Now, the problem is, as Obama said when he was around, that we need to build strong institutions and not strong men. So Atiku has made a proposal for a 6-year tenure rotational around the 6 geopolitical zones, which is not bad compared to the 8 years, 4-year with the option to renew for 2 terms. Now, what's the question you need to ask is, what is the problem? He's saying that it would be cheaper. One, it would also prevent the rancor or the higi-haga and all the boiling up of the nation each time elections come, simply because every side of the country wants to participate. He's also saying that along federal character, it would allow every geopolitical zone to at least experience the presidency. But my issue with it is that as long as we base our form of government, on sentiment, we will never get the right results. Because I think if I heard a little bit of the co-panelists speaking, that it doesn't prevent them from being corrupt. That's one. But essentially, if you look at what he has proposed, 6 years tenure means whoever we have, to a large extent, if we can't impeach the person, if they go in the wrong direction in terms of leadership in government, it will take 6 years until we're able to get that administration out of the way. That's one. Secondly, the second level of determining factor is each geopolitical zone. even though federal character speaks to the rotation or the equity in all zones in the country, is that a strong point for governance? Governance should never be about where you are from, even though that's what we practice at the moment. But it's a weak point, or it's a weak criteria, because it does not evaluate, neither does it project what is actually required to move a country forward. What you require is sound leadership and understanding of administration. Now, what you have seen is that we have turned governance into a monthly crew of friends and family, of cronies and crooks, meaning as long as I have my people who have helped me get into power, where the checks and balances lie in terms of the National Assembly, the executive, and the judiciary, as long as I can get everybody within my own boat ride, then we can do what we like and nobody's going to stop us. I would actually want some people in this government, the same way they proposed the renewal of the national anthem, I would actually propose going back to the parliamentary system that we had between 1960 and 1963, which was the first republic, which was cheaper, especially for a country that is struggling with revenue. And under the parliamentary system, there are checks and balances. You're either on the party that is in power, or you are in the opposition, checking the government. Now you have a presidential system with an almighty president, which has a full complement of ministers, as well as the executive and the legislature. Even our legislature is even bicameral. Under the parliamentary system, which we did in the First Republic, with Nnamdi Azikiwe, Dabiri-Erewa, and some of the likes of which many people we celebrate today, the party who wins the majority becomes the administrative power, right? Whilst the party that loses opposes and checks them daily in parliament. You don't have to bring in a whole new set of ministers. You take ministers from your party members who are in the parliament, just like you see it in the United Kingdom at the moment. I think that would be the best way. And the good thing about parliamentary administration is that at any point in time, if the people are pushing for a change, right, once the sentiment around the country arises that we don't like the way the government is treating us, sometimes they call for either a snap election, and what you see, like what you saw in the UK, in less than a day or two, it's possible to change the government. And just take a look at South Africa. Just in case the party in power does not win the majority to form government, they must take in members of the opposition to be able to make up the government, which is, I feel, a healthy form of working together, which allows everybody to maintain his political ideology and still push for the betterment of the country. But as we are, as running the presidential system, whether you give them 2 years or you give them 10 years single term, just like the other panelists said, we will get to a point that would have produced politicians and leaders who all their interest is in their pockets, right, or their own personal endeavors.
Well, speaking of checks and balances, and also our guest, your co-panelist, Ahmed Musa, made a case, and it was about the judiciary as well, being a standalone and being as independent and autonomous as possible. Do you see this happening, and what would be the right structural political structure to see the judiciary be independent and truly and really be the last man's resort, or the common man's resort?
Under the presidential system, the judiciary is actually independent. What most people forget to see is that the three arms of government under the federal republic system, you have the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. They are equal, okay? But what has happened is that corruption has eaten into the fabric of our governance, whereby at some point in our history, those within executive powers colluded, okay, with the legislature. Likewise, they colluded with the judiciary, making nonsense of the checks and balances that are supposed to keep each side independent, okay? This is the this is the major challenge with not this point of government, but with the people as a whole. Corruption literally collapses everything. Corruption makes nonsense of brilliant economic plans. As you can see, the removal of subsidy and the harmonization of FX, they're brilliant economic policies. But if you don't follow it through, meaning you plug the leakages, plug where corruption is taking place, whatever you have planned will never come to fruition. So instead of renewed hope, it's more of renewed shege. So instead of the judiciary being independent because of corruption, okay, because of buybacks and all manner of graft that takes place, then you begin to see the entities, that's the judiciary and the legislature, that were meant to be the checks and balance on the executive, colluding with them to continue in their ways which are not in the interest of the masses.
All right. Well, Devo, as always, very solid analysis, and also to our co-guest here, and that's Ahmed Musa. I want to thank both gentlemen for this solid analysis that you brought us today. Fantastic insight, and also putting the very key issues to the forefront, and that is corruption, and as well as, you know, making sure that all of the tiers and arms of government become a standalone and be able to check each other, sort of by a longer single term or two-term or shorter single term. It's about the people governance and making sure that our country works. Once again, many thanks. Devo Okore, political analyst and public commentator, as well as Ahmed Musa. He is part of the member of the APC. Once again, gentlemen, thank you. APC. All right, we're going to short break. When we come back on the other side, it's going to be time for us to get into Wellness Center. And this time, we're talking about an issue that affects millions of men. Stay here.
Well, welcome back. It's Wellness Central this time. And today we are talking about an issue that affects millions of men, like Judith said from before, worldwide, not just here in Nigeria, but is often shrouded in silence, especially in more conservative societies like Nigeria. It's called erectile dysfunction. Now, according to Yale Medicine, ED is the persistent difficulty in achieving or maintaining an erection sufficient for satisfactory sexual performance. While it may be linked to physical causes such as cardiovascular diseases or diabetes, in many places like in Nigeria, cultural beliefs, superstition, and also even religious notions make this topic difficult to discuss openly, leaving many men without proper treatment.
Hence why there's so many bitters that are being sold. The condition isn't just about physical health, by the way. It's tied to emotional well-being, self-esteem, as well as relationships. However, advancements in medical science have brought about effective treatments ranging from lifestyle changes and medication also to therapy. Now, still in countries like Nigeria, myths surrounding erectile dysfunction remain widespread, with people often turning to unproven remedies or attempting or attributing the condition to supernatural causes. Again, why bitters are being sold. So today we aim to unpack the cultural, psychological, and medical aspects of erectile dysfunction, bringing more awareness to a condition that deserves open and informed conversations.
Yes, so joining us for this vital discussion is Dr. Yusuf Harun, medical doctor and founder of the Love of Health organization. Dr. Yusuf, thank you very much for being with us. And let's go straight to it. In Nigeria, we know that there's so much to consider when it comes to this topic. Now, what are some of the most common misconceptions and even superstitions about erectile dysfunction that you've encountered in your journey in medicine?
Thank you very much for this opportunity to talk about erectile dysfunction.
You're welcome.
One of the most common misconceptions, particularly in Africa, is that erectile dysfunction is due to the problem of the woman. So in Africa, we blame women for everything, and this is a misconception. So the man might blame her for not having proper erection, and this causes depression again in the relationship. Another misconception is what you talked about when you were doing the introduction, and that is traditional or spiritual attacks. Many Africans always believe that erectile dysfunction is due to their family or their village people affecting them, which is another misconception. Finally, a misconception many people have, which I talked about extensively, is that people think erectile dysfunction only occurs to men in their old age. So these are the three main misconceptions people have about erectile dysfunction.
Interesting. Can we look at the cultural reluctance to discuss this issue now? What role does religion play when it comes to erectile dysfunction? The reluctance of people to willingly tell that, oh, I have a problem and I need medical help.
Yes. Now, if we look at Africa compared to the US, where I practice and I work, Africa is too religious, even more religious than even the Pope, or more religious than even the people who brought the religion. What I mean is that anything that happens to us, we feel it is either the devil or Satan that caused it, or it is God that inflicted it. But we don't look at the underlying cause by ourselves. Let me give you a quick example. There is a particular man who is in his 40s, and he cannot move close to his wife because he's having erectile dysfunction. So what he believes is that by his own religious beliefs, his wife is having infidelity, and that's why he cannot get close to her. So these are just part of the misconceptions we have about erectile dysfunction, and these are part of the problems people misconstrue about the religion. They believe, oh, it is maybe the cause of the devil, or it is a God that caused this on them. So religion has played a major effect on people's psyche about erectile dysfunction.
And it makes us wonder about, stigmatization as well. Do you think that the reluctancy to talk, besides just religion, also has to do with stigmatization and how pop culture and, social conditioning has made men cover themselves and shroud or just shun away conversations like this?
Yes, this is a good example now. Many women in Africa believe that their religion shouldn't allow them to express their sexual desires. It is usually considered as a taboo. So if a woman comes out to tell her husband that, okay, we've been married for years and you are not meeting up sexually as a man, the religious perception is that the woman is promiscuous, or probably she has been sleeping out. So this is a religious effect some people have in their marriage about erectile dysfunction.
Dr.
Another example is, yes, go ahead, please.
I was actually going to ask, because we are running out of time, let's get to the symptoms. Let's get to the real factors that cause erectile dysfunction before we talk about treatment. What are the factors that actually cause it?
There are three main factors that cause erectile dysfunction. Number one, it's medical. Examples include diabetes, hypertension. You also have vascular disease and all other associated medical conditions. It can cause a man to have obesity, can cause it. Number two is lifestyle. Excessive alcohol intake, smoking, excessive consumption of unhealthy food. All this also lifestyle activities. Sedentary lifestyle, that is a man who is not active, sitting down in his office 10 hours, not working, is likely to develop erectile dysfunction. Then if we look at age also has a role. I'm going to say this, which is very important. I want our viewers to take this home. At the age of 40, about 40% of men develop erectile dysfunction. At the age of 70, about 70% of men develop erectile dysfunction. So you can say that most men at one point in their life would develop this condition. Finally, psychological factors also, such as depression, anxiety, and relationship discordance. For example, if a man and a woman are already having relationship issues, if they want to have sex, there's a most likely possibility that the man may not develop full erection. Also, there's a great possibility that the woman will not be sexually attracted to the man at that moment because of their emotional imbalance and their relationship disagreements. So she might not even be aroused. She might not be wet enough to even facilitate the man to have adequate penetration and for both of them to enjoy copulation.
It makes me wonder, besides just a lack of erection, is there any other symptoms that one would want to be looking out for, you know, just to know?
Yes. One of the symptoms you look at is the duration. There is a chart that the average sex should last, average for the first, should last between 2 to 7 minutes, average. We're not talking about the foreplay. Foreplay could last longer. Some people can have a foreplay for 20 minutes before penetration. But once there's penetration, it should be average of 2 to 7 minutes, which is called adequate. Some men could go 10 minutes. But if one of the symptoms, like you asked, is if a man who has normally been having good erection with his woman for duration of 2 to 7 minutes before he ejaculates, is now having just 1 minute or 30 seconds, then the man and the woman have to be worried that there's a problem. And this is one of the symptoms of erectile dysfunction.
Doctor, do you think the
quick ejaculation?
Do you think that
Yes.
because of
now there's a difference, please. There's a difference between.
Go ahead. You wanted to make a difference. You wanted to put the distinctions.
There is a major difference between premature ejaculation and erectile dysfunction. They are different.
Right.
Premature ejaculation, erectile dysfunction are different.
Okay.
So we have to understand.
All right.
Impotence is erectile dysfunction. Premature ejaculation is a different one entirely.
So when he's excited, he might have a premature ejaculation?
Exactly. Now,
gotcha.
the main difference is premature is where normally a man should have sex with his woman and it should last, like I said, 2 to 7 minutes before he ejaculates, before he releases the seminal fluid. So if a man, there are some men, I'll give you an example, a man, even while he's having foreplay with his woman, before he even penetrates her, he's already ejaculating. That is premature ejaculation. Or once he penetrates her, in less than a minute, he already ejaculates. That's premature. So, erectile dysfunction is when even the manhood is not strong enough to last long, between 2 to 7 minutes. It gets soft.
Yeah, I'm glad we're having this conversation about the distinction between the two, because we've seen the sales of this substitute alternatives of aphrodisiacs with the names bitters on top, and as well as the locally, you know, fabricated and brewed ones like Agbo, I don't know how to say it.
You know the names,
but you know the names.
Agbo Jedis.
Agbo Jedis, yeah, exactly. They're being sold. So is it because of premature ejaculation or just a lack of...
Is it effective?
Should they even be buying it in the first place? You know, what are the effects, the side effects of all of this type of off-the-counter drugs?
Yeah, this is a very beautiful question. As a medical professional, most of our drugs are extracted from herbs and trees. A good example is sildenafil, which is popularly known as Viagra, the blue pill that men use. It was coincidentally discovered by a woman in Europe, and I believe it's in London, while she was even trying to treat a heart condition for a man. She then noticed that the man's erection became very hard. And that is how it was. So I don't just discountenance those using aphrodisiacs. My only problem is that there should be measurement. I saw a patient who came to the hospital and was rushed to the emergency. He used this kind of aphrodisiac, and the person who gave him didn't measure it. So we usually have dosage. So he used excessive one because he wanted to satisfy his woman, and he developed what is called priapism. Priapism is the opposite of erectile dysfunction. Priapism is what some patients with sickle cell disease have. Priapism means that the man's erection may last for 2 hours, 10 hours. So about the aphrodisiacs and the agbo, my own recommendation is that they can bring their plants, let it to be scientifically studied, let there be research on it, let there be dosage and pharmacological studies on this kind of agbos or aphrodisiacs.
All right, doctor, real quick.
Because
real quick, before we end, we need to talk about prevention and maybe even treatment. Could you give us any hopes on that one?
Yes. Now, the first thing is to treat the underlying cause. In anything in medicine, treat the underlying cause. For example, if a man is having erectile dysfunction as a result of a medical condition, a good number of men have heart disease, which they don't know. It could be diabetes. If the glucose, something called hyperglycemia, if the glucose level in the bloodstream is too high, the man may develop erectile dysfunction. That's diabetes. Well, our fathers and our mothers will tell us, oh, don't take too much sugar. It's not that sugar directly causes erectile dysfunction. But if somebody has diabetes, there's something called microvascular complications and macrovascular complications. It's a topic for another day. So treat the underlying cause. Diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, treat whatever condition is having. Number two, again, is stop smoking. Smoking can also cause erectile dysfunction. Alcohol also, cease it or stop it. Number three, again, improving exercise. Men that perform exercise have a tendency to last longer in bed also. Because if you are running for 30 minutes a day, you most likely, because even sex is also an exercise. Because after performing the act, the man in particular tends to breathe faster and his heart improves, his heartbeat increases. So treat the underlying condition. Finally, about the emotional, I said there are three main factors: physical, medical, and emotional. The emotional one, try to see a counselor if you and your spouse cannot solve the problem. See a psychologist, see a therapist, see a sex professional, sex expert. Add spice to your sex life. Maybe it's just one position you are doing which is boring and is not. Add more things to it. Improve your sexual interaction. Definitely this problem will be solved.
Well, there you have it. Improve your sexual interactions and side attractions. Anyway, Doctor, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate you for doing this
What a conversation for a Sunday morning. Totally enjoyed it.
Well, that was your choice.
Thank you, Doctor. We'll be coming back to you for many of these kinds.
Of
so we'll be looking
discussions.
forward to our next
invitation. Anyway, this brings us to the end of this discussion and the end for this hour on Breakfast Extra. But not to worry, because coming up right after this is going to be time for sports. We're bringing you the headlines for sports immediately after this. And of course, at the top of the hour, Mazzino Appeal is going to be on standby for the news. Stay with us.
Welcome to Sports Update on Breakfast Extra. I'm Favor Itua. We'll begin with stories from the world of football, where head coach of the Super Eagles of Nigeria, Augustine Egwavoin, have called Captain William Truss Ekong, Ademola Lookman, and Moses Simon, and 20 other players for this month's home and away 2025 Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers with the Mediterranean Knights of Libya. Wingbacks Ola Oluwa Aina and Bruno Nyemechi are well included, as well as goalkeepers Stanley Wabali, Maduka Okoye made the list. Of course, reigning Africa Player of the Year Victor Osimhen and South Africa-based centre-backs Olisa Inda have been excluded on grounds of injury. The Super Eagles will host the Mediterranean Knights at the Gosul Akpabio Stadium in Uyo on Friday, the 11th of October, before flying to Benghazi to take on the Knights at the Mata of Benina Stadium, 19 kilometers away from Benghazi, on Tuesday, the 15th of October. Interesting times ahead for the Super Eagles of Nigeria. And still sticking with the Super Eagles of Nigeria, let's let you know that Galatasaray striker Victor Osimhen is out of the squad for the two Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers against Libya due to injury. Injured South Africa-based defender Olisa Inda was also excluded from the roster, selected by caretaker coach Augustine Egwavoin. The Super Eagles will face the Libya in southern Nigeria on Friday, October 11th, before the team meet again 4 days later in North Africa. Currently, Nigeria tops Group D with 4 points from 2 matches, while Libya sits at the bottom with just 1 point. The squad aims to capitalize on their current position as they prepare for these crucial qualifiers. Away from the Super Eagles, we'll go straight to the camp of the Flying Eagles, where the Flying Eagles secured the victory against Legacy Football Academy in their final warm-up match on Saturday, held at the MKO Abiola National Stadium in Abuja. This game marks their last training session in Abuja before moving to Ikenne for further preparations. Now, despite being on the strength on the 20 team, coached by Aliu Zubeiru, the Flying Eagles scored in both halves against physically intimidating Legacy Academy squad. They are set to face Cote d'Ivoire and Burkina Faso in the first round of the sub-regional qualifiers later this month. The competition kicks off on the 17th of October in Lomé, Togo, as the Flying Eagles aim to build on their recent success. And now to the world of the mixed martial arts. Alex Pereira defended his light heavyweight title for the third time at UFC 307, stopping Kali Rountree in the fourth round. The fight held at the Delta Center in Salt Lake City showcased an intense battle, with Rountree initially landing hard shots and winning round 2. However, Pereira turned the tide in round 3 with effective leg kicks, bruising Rountree and gaining momentum. In round 4, Pereira intensified his attack, forcing Rountree to retreat and cover up as he unleashed a series of powerful strikes, culminating in a stoppage at 4 minutes 32 seconds. Pereira, now 12-2 in MMA, continues to shine as the promotion's MVP, while Rountree's 5-fight win streak ends with this loss. All right, interesting one right there in the world of the UFC. And that wraps it up on Sports Update. I'm Favor Itua. We'll go on a quick break.
Lines for the 10 o'clock hour. My name is Mazino Appeal. Now we begin with updates from the local government polls in Rivers State, where the State Independent Electoral Commission has announced the result of the local government election held yesterday in the state. The commission's chairman, retired Justice Adolphus Inebili, who announced the results, said the Action People's Party won the chairmanship position in 22 out of 23 local government areas where collation has been concluded. He said the collation of the remaining LGAs of Eche is still ongoing due to the difficult terrain of the area.
I, Honorable Justice Adolphus Enebili, retired, in my capacity as the Chairman, Chief Electoral Commissioner of the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission, and pursuant to the extant provisions of the Rivers State Independent Electoral Law Number 2 of 2018 and all other laws enabling me in that behalf, do hereby make declaration of results for the chairmanship elections into the 23 local government councils of Rivers State. After painstaking collation of results at the close of poll by our team of officials regarding the local government council elections conducted this day, the 5th of October 2024, the following candidates, having scored majority of lawful or valid votes cast in 2/3 of the respective wards comprising their respective local government areas of Rivers State, are hereby returned as elected chairmen or chairwomen. They are 1. Abua Odwa, Ruben Vincent Obo, APP. Ahoda East, Esu Rizi Chibudom Hezekiah, APP. The details of the statistics of the respective scores shall be published in RISEC website and the media, and they will be made available to the public and all contestants. The election results for cancellation.
Now, in the meantime, former President Goodluck Jonathan has issued a cautionary call to political actors, security agencies, and the judiciary, urging them to avoid actions that could worsen the political tension currently brewing in Rivers State. The tension stems from the local government election recently held in the state, which has sparked a political crisis. In a statement posted on his Twitter account on Saturday, Jonathan voiced deep concerns over the unfolding situation, stressing the importance of peace and the stability of Nigeria's democracy. The former president appealed to all stakeholders, especially state institutions, to ensure that democratic principles are upheld by conducting peaceful and credible elections. Elsewhere in Akwa Ibom State, hoodlums have set the State Independent Electoral Commission office in Ibiono, Ibom local government area of the state on fire. Confirming the incident to newsmen in Uyo, the State Police Public Relations Officer ASP Tim Fun John revealed that hoodlums orchestrated the fire, but the electoral materials remained untouched and the election continued as scheduled. She added that security has been beefed up at the Akisek office and strategic locations across the state to prevent further sabotage. Nigeria's federal government announced the commencement of crude oil and refined petroleum product sales in Naira as of October 1st, 2024. The Ministry of Finance shared the updates, though details on contractual agreements and pricing were not provided. The move follows a directive from the Federal Executive Council approved under President Bola Tinubu's administration, allowing local refineries to purchase crude oil and refined products using the local currency. In northern Africa, polling stations opened across Tunisia on Sunday for a presidential election in which incumbent President Kais Saied faces no significant opposition. Saied, who is widely expected to win, is running virtually unchallenged as his most prominent critics, including a key contender, remains behind bars. The election marks 3 years since Said's sweeping power grab and is being viewed as a potential closing chapter in Tunisia's experiment with democracy. Voting began at 8 a.m. local time, with more than 5,000 polling stations set to close at 6 p.m. according to the ISIE Electoral Authority. In southern Africa, Mozambique will hold a general election on the 9th of October, but voters fear they will be deprived of a fair and democratic electoral process. Mozambique won independence in 1975 after a decade-long war against Portuguese colonizers and is one of the poorest countries in the world despite its vast natural gas deposits.
Mas em termos de roubo dos votos, pode haver nos prejudicar, porque dizem que a Frelimo que fez, a Frelimo que faz. Tudo vai fazer a força e ele está a fazer a força.
O voto sempre contou e vai contar para sempre. Só que acontece, as nossas eleições nunca foram transparentes, né? Sempre há muitas reclamações, a população votam e os resultados mantêm os mesmos. O que quer dizer, há muita burocracia, por exemplo, na parte da CNE ou do STAI, sempre que manipular resultados. Mesmo que há fraude, eles declaram que a Frelimo é vencedora.
And that's all for the headlines that we have this morning. Do stay tuned because we've got more bulletins coming your way. And now, let's tell you what we have coming your way. It's been a while, and we have our Weekend Warrior. And today we have a very special awardee, let's put it that way, or a group of them. So, as we take a moment to honor the Weekend Warriors of this week, I can't help but reflect on a man who left an incredible mark on my life. And I'm going to tell Judith all about this person. His name is Mr. Gay Ayedzi. Now, he wasn't just my primary six teacher. He was a beacon of discipline, compassion, and wisdom. And as we celebrated World Teachers' Day yesterday, it was one time that I figured must be a time when I must, laud this very fine gentleman. A proud Ghanaian, Mr. Ayedzi dedicated his life to shaping young minds, enriching us with not only academic lessons, but lessons that he taught us in arts, in language, in music, and also, most importantly, morality. As we celebrate World Teachers' Day yesterday, it was my intention to dedicate today's Weekend Warrior Award to not just late Mr. Gay Ayedzi, but also to teachers across Nigeria, of whom we always say their reward might be in heaven. But no, today I would like to agree, or rather disagree, and say that their rewards are here in our hearts, and that we owe it to them to express this sense of appreciation now while they are still with us, no matter how much older we've grown or how much we have accomplished over the years. Because we'd never have been here without them when you think about it. And for me, Mr. Ayedzi was a disciplinarian through and through, a figure we feared before we knew better. His strictness was legendary, and the rumors about his classroom sent shivers down our spines. But for every ounce of discipline, there was an equal measure of tenderness. He didn't just discipline us, he molded us, guided us with patience, with care, reminding us that learning goes beyond books. By the end of the school year, every student who once trembled at the thought of being posted to his class was grateful for the opportunity to have experienced his brand of education. Now, the news of his passing came to me 10 years too late, actually. It wasn't just the sorrow of losing him that struck me. It was regret, actually. Regret that I never got the chance to thank him in person, that I naively thought time was infinite and that I could always return to express my gratitude. But time, as we all eventually learn, is fleeting. And so I implore everyone watching and everyone listening, don't wait. Think of that teacher who shaped you, who inspired you, and who reached out. And you should also do that. Reach out as well, just to say thank you now while you still can. And maybe you should let go of that childish naivety thinking that time would always be by your side, because in truth, none of that is promised. So to Mr. Gay Aidzi, though you are no longer here, your legacy lives on. Every lesson you taught, every note of music that you passed on, it's carried here with us. Your students, wherever we go, we thank you for your selfless dedication. And to all teachers, you are the backbone of society, the unsung heroes, the architects of the future. Know this. Today, we honor all of you as our weekend warriors. You are the guardians of knowledge, the ones who give tirelessly, even when the world overlooks your sacrifice. In Nigeria, we often say a teacher's reward is in heaven, like I said from before, but that does not mean that we should not celebrate you here and now. You are our warriors in every sense, our champions who shape not just minds, but hearts, lives, and destinies. And we salute you, teachers everywhere, especially in Abuja, for every lesson, every bit of encouragement, every ounce of care, and every late night spent preparing for another day. We say thank you. The world is a better place because of you, and today we honor you as the true warriors you are. Your legacies, like Mr. Aidzi's, will definitely forever live on. And I want to ask Judith one special question. Who was your special teacher growing up?
I didn't have a favorite.
Who was it?
I don't have a favorite.
You don't?
Yeah, that's...
I'm wondering where this will go, guys.
My brain's doing that thing. So the thing is, I don't have a favorite thing. I don't have a favorite food, I don't have a favorite color. Generally, I just don't have a favorite thing. So it's not because I don't like my teachers. But on the contrary, I loved all of them. I think that they were very amazing. There is not... If you ask me one person, you have killed me, because it's like, oh yeah, but I like this guy, but I like this teacher as well. So all of my English teachers were amazing. The head of department for the mathematics, he was sublime. I think he was a head of...
Didn't like the mathematics.
It was hard. It was difficult because it was. I think he was a head of an Anglican church.
Oh.
So every single time you'd see him, there was always some sort of word of encouragement he would give you, and some sort of proverb or something he would drop for you. There was also Mr. Ogumboye. He was our music teacher, and every single time he comes to class, he would start singing, playing with the piano. I'm sorry for you. The piano. There were so many, and I loved all of them dearly.
Yeah.
And of course, there was my guardian, Mr. and Mrs. Abrahams, and they had a school of fishes as their guardians as well. And they were also into farming, and they had their own farm. And I would go spend midterm breaks there. I had so many beautiful teachers. My literature teachers, I adore every single one of them. Every one of them.
I can see how much teachers actually mean to us. And it's so unfortunate.
I love them. We're going to favorites? Yeah.
The situation in Abuja is so unfortunate, because you do know that they are actually still on strike. It's primary school teachers who are on strike. I think how many months now of unpaid salaries.
Yes.
So it's unfortunate that we put them through so much like that, because they put in so much when it comes to bringing up children. So I'm hoping that to every teacher out there in Abuja, this is also going out to you as our warriors you guys are. We hope that you resolve these matters with the government, and that you guys are paid what is, in fact, you can never be paid what your worth is, because you guys are just so much. We never see it at the time, how good or how important teachers are.
And also, can I just say, not only to the teaching staff, but also the non-teaching staff as well, because they were also a support staff who were supporting the teachers and who contributed immensely to the system as well. So big props to them. Even if you didn't have the certificate or you were not in the classroom instructing them, you were also a backbone in the infrastructure that was the school. So from the school administrators to those who were a supporting teacher, to the nurses or the caretakers in the nursery area, the kitchen ladies. The kitchen ladies were wonderful.
They were.
The Top Shop people were just
Great
great.
time.
And all the games masters as well, because we had a badminton field, we had a tennis field, we had all those fields. So the game masters would come and they would teach us all about the games, and that's why I love tennis and I love basketball and badminton and all of the, because they were there like, I think you'll be fantastic, Ronnie. Let's run. Come on, guys. Come on. You know, it was so much fun.
Well, no, she chose to be a broadcaster. Lost out on an Olympic gold medal. They told you, but you didn't. But look at all that memory. Look how bright it made you. And
I love all my teachers. It's not one of them that I love everything. Look, at the time, and now that I think about it, at the time, like you said, for Mr. Ayedzi, you know, so one of the things that was hard at the time is that we all thought that they were difficult because of how strict they were. They were so hard. They were so
you end up liking the teachers that teach you the most.
Because when you now come out of it, it's like, yeah, I was kind of a handful. I was a brat, you know. It makes sense now.
I give plenty of accolades to Mr. Ayedzi, but it wasn't just for show, because he actually impacted so much on us.
Right.
And at the time, growing up and learning during the 80s, being in primary school in the 80s, Nigeria had this thing where we had so many Ghanaian teachers in Nigeria.
And they were, look, those teachers.
I'm not gonna talk about this Nigerian Jello versus.
Let's not get in there.
Well, when it comes to the English language, these guys were pristine. Mr. Champong, Mr. Ayedzi, Mr. Sisi.
We had a Miss James in my primary school, and her English was sublime, right? I always prayed for me to be posted to a class, but I never go to a class because I ended school at primary 5, 4, but I never go to primary 6, right? But the interesting thing about her is that she, even as she's coming in, and she also had the Ghanaian women, so she's coming in, all of the boys were like always transfixed on her. That's when their sexual awakening was coming on, but she was amazing, right? But she was also a disciplinarian. And with your monologue, it's very clear that all the Ghanaian teachers as well, they have that disciplinarian thing going on. They were so strict. When we saw her, we had the same fear that we did for the naval officers who were teachers. I went to a naval school as well.
I wish we had more Ghanaian teachers, but then again, not to say that our Nigerian ones
No, not to say we adore them.
You guys are great, but it was just such a very interesting culture exchange.
Yes.
Let's put it that way. Tell you guys what, let's do a break, and then we'll get into the thick of things for the 10 o'clock hour here for Breakfast Extra. We'll be back. And you're welcome. It's time to show you guys the strips. The very interesting, sometimes funny, in fact, always funny cartoons that actually make the news easier to consume. Judith is with me, and today we'll be looking at a couple from last week because we had some very interesting ones. Judith, I don't know if I shared some of them with you before the show, but did you see the strips from last week, the ones that we were about to show?
I think I saw one, but not all.
Okay, well, we'll do this together.
It's like a husband and wife thing where I let the husband do the thing and I just come up and add surprise. Oh, that's so wonderful, darling.
That must be from the...
Madam Jennifer, sorry.
All right, now let's start with our very first strip for this morning. Now, this, hang on a second. There we go. From Business Day newspaper. We just celebrated the independence, and that's the 1st of October. That was on Tuesday. Everybody was celebrating, but really, who was celebrating? This strip here, the flag is waving them. It's waving the man. Nigeria. What have we become? I remember a time where we used to always celebrate and we're very happy when it comes to the independence. But right now, I don't know about the last one. It was very low key because there were so many matches that needed to be attended to as Nigerians were out even demonstrating, telling or calling to attention the government that, hey, this is not what we remember. This is what Nigeria has become. Well, happy 64th in any case, regardless. Judith, what did you think about the celebrations, and does this capture it?
What?
As in, it's like...
What I want to say, I don't... Okay, let me say this way. The fact that the man is so emaciated that he's now the flag that is flying, so much so, it shows how the average Nigerian has been emaciated with hunger.
Yeah, we're suffering, it'll seem. But that's not all. There's still some more that have to do with the state of the country. Let's go on to our next one this morning. Now, still on the independence. The president's promises to end hunger. Are you still hungry? Nope, I'm full of his promises. We've had so many promises. And even on his presidential speech, inside of his presidential speech, more promises. Asking Nigerians, don't worry, hold on. Time is coming, everything will be fine. The papers carried it all the way out until Friday, telling that the president is asking for calm. There's a confab that was also suggested by the president. Now, don't worry, come and tell us your problems, you youth, and then we'll solve it. Well, when will the end come, or when will all of this suffering end? Well, we ask, we wonder. Let's not talk too much about this one, because there's another one I'd like to see, Judith.
Okay.
All right, now, so let's move on to the next one. Happy 64th Independence Day. Check that out. That big elephant on that side is the politicians' wages. And at the bottom there, the new minimum wage of 70,000 naira. Now come to this side. I like this guy. I think this is Mustafa. He draws for the Daily Trust. Healthcare, transport, school fees, rent, food. That's what we have to contend with, and our new minimum wage of 70,000 naira. By the way, Judith, do you know what 70,000 naira is in dollars?
Don't do it. Don't do it.
I just want to bring some perspective.
Don't do it.
I'm going to have to. I'm going to go there. It is less than, it's half of $100.
Yes.
Half?
Yes.
Less than.
It's $50 in a month.
Oh, my God.
The average Nigerian earns $50 in a month. To quote Devo Corey, our guest earlier, it's no more renewed hope, it's now renewed shege. Let's keep it moving. Let's keep it moving.
What he said. What he said. Keep it moving. Yes, do. But this is it. Renewed shege, according to Devo and reiterated by Judith. I wish we had time for some more, because I was so excited about the strips today, but I'm being told that we don't have any time, so we can't do too many of them. It's our final hour. We have all the stuff that we have to talk about, so let's just let this one go, and maybe we'll post some of them on social media for you guys to see. All right? So let's move on now to our extra special and something else that we've got prepared for you inside of Breakfast Extra. We'll be back. Once again, welcome back. And this time, it's Focus Africa, our segment where we discuss, well, things bordering on the African continent. Now, today, there's a worrying situation inside of South Africa as we turn our attention where a wave of gun violence has escalated into a major crisis, especially for e-hailing drivers. Now, these drivers who rely on platforms like Uber and Bolt have taken to the streets to protest the rising crime rate, which has led to numerous attacks and robberies, often with deadly consequences. Now, many drivers now fear for their safety as criminals continue to target them, exacerbating an already dangerous security situation in parts of the country. The crime wave has left e-hailing drivers vulnerable, with several incidents of carjackings and violent assaults making headlines.
Right. Now, this protest comes at a critical time as the South African government struggles to contain the violence and restore public confidence in law enforcement. Commuters, particularly in high crime areas, are feeling the impact of these strikes, with limited transportation options leading to significant disruptions. But beyond the immediate effects on e-hailing services, the crisis points to larger issues plaguing the nation, including socioeconomic challenges, lack of job opportunities, and a strained relationship between the public and the police.
Now we are joined by Milithemba Chris Nguni. He is with the e-hailing services, and he'll be talking to us about the situation currently in South Africa. Milithemba, you're welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning. We would like you to give us, an instant view of what exactly the situation is right now in South Africa regarding the protests, the e-hailing cab drivers, and the violence that they're experiencing.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. Look, we've got a serious challenge as far as crime is concerned, and we are experiencing death as far as drivers are concerned, and this is happening on a daily basis. It's just fortunate that the recent incident was captured on camera. It has caught the attention of many. But to tell you, drivers are dying on a daily basis, where they are either being robbed by criminals, but also we've got challenges where we are attacked by our counterparts. There's issues of extortion. So there is a lot of killings. To just give you a broader view. So the week in which this incident where Gaza was shot, we've had 4 other incidents that we are aware of. And mind you, there are other incidents that happen without us getting to know about them.
And that's very sad indeed. Well, let's also talk about, gun violence. That is, there's a conversation that's being had on the sidelines of this violence that the e-hailing drivers are experiencing. Can you talk more a bit about that and also the incident that occurred with the driver who's now been killed? And we understand that court proceedings are starting tomorrow, Monday.
Yeah, look, we've got a challenge with gun violence in the country. Which has been there for some time, and it continues. And as e-hailing drivers, we are being robbed by people who are usually carrying guns, and it gets violent, and sometimes you are confused when they are robbing you, and your reaction ends up leading to you getting a shot, and most times you are shot dead. So this is a huge challenge that we have. But the biggest issue with e-hailing is that a lot of people can commit these crimes and get away with it. And that is part of the reason why we are experiencing so much crime around e-hailing, with a lot of drivers getting killed.
Right. And might I ask about this e-hailing companies? I'm sure have they been able to employ a bit more security, functionalities to be able to secure the drivers? Think issues like maybe life insurance, more in-car camera. I think that's a proper description for it. What other security measures are they employing to make sure that drivers who are under their companies are safe? Are you people advocating for recommendations like this?
Unfortunately, that's been our biggest challenge with the e-hailing companies. Hence the protest that took place on Friday, where we are calling them to implement security measures. And we've been doing so for the longest time, and they seem to care less. And this is part of the reason why we are also urging our government to regulate them, whereby they will be compelled to implement security measures. They've had an attitude of saying, look, they did not bring crime in the country, in South Africa, they find crime here. And they've always pointed e-hailers to the police, which does not help the situation, because when you come to South Africa, you understand that it is a country with high crime rates, but you cannot leave your house unlocked or without burglar bars and so forth. These are security measures that you take personally, and worker safety is also something that is in our constitution. But what these app companies have been doing is that they have not been taking those measures. The legal security measures that are there, we've had to fight for them. And your Uber has done much as far as implementing security measures, but you've got your Bolt and your InDrive who've not done much, because they don't verify the users, mostly the passengers. You look at the side of drivers, they do all the necessary screening where they take the fingerprints of the driver, the picture of the driver is there on the app. They also interview the drivers. But when it comes to passengers, you are able to just create an email address, sign up, request, and then after requesting, you rob a driver and you get away with it. There's no trace, which is part of the reason why these criminals have found a new way, easy way to rob drivers, get a smartphone, hijack a car, and so forth. So it remains a big issue, and you need to understand that currently the app companies themselves, they are not regulated in the country. We envy other countries like your Kenya and Nigeria who've taken a move into regulating these app companies. Unfortunately, in South Africa, it remains a different story.
Okay, now Chris, it's a very sad situation, and I understand the disparity when it comes to the driver-passenger dynamic here that you speak about. However, let's talk about Gaza's situation now. Gaza's case goes to court tomorrow, and I hear that there's a protest that's been organized asking for no bail. Can you tell us more about this situation?
Look, that's another issue that we have. We've got situations where criminals are sometimes apprehended, but then there's always catch and release that happens. And we've seen that a lot, where there is prima facie evidence, but at the end of the day, the criminals walk out. So you'd understand that our justice system, everyone has got a right to bail, but it is for the state to oppose the bail, given the evidence. And these are the people that, if you've looked at the footage, there wasn't any strangling between them and Gaza for it to institute the shooting that took place. These are dangerous people that shouldn't be part of the society. So this is what we are pushing to make sure that the prosecuting authority makes sure that these guys, this guy that has been caught does not get bail. Because these are people that when they are out, they go on to commit these crimes. And we also have got an issue of some of our authorities or police officers who are not trustworthy. They get involved in issues of bribes and so forth. So these criminals end up getting away with these issues. We've got a case for my brother who was also hijacked and shot. He was on board, and there was enough evidence and everything, but the police ended up saying that they've lost the evidence, and those criminals ultimately they were released. And then interestingly, in a month or two, they were caught again robbing e-hailing drivers. So this is a challenge that we have. So we're going out there tomorrow to push and make sure that there is no kind of a foul play that happens to have this criminal released.
It's always very interesting when we speak to other African countries on issues, and every single time, one of the pertinent key things that we take out of it is the underlining issue of corruption and, you know, just distrust in the policing system and the security agencies. But I'd like for you to talk more about this case that you are protesting for, the death of N. Gaza and also the perpetrators of the crime. Who were the persons who did this? Can you tell us more about this case for the benefit of our viewers, please?
So Gaza was requested in the areas of Johannesburg, the CBD, in an area called Bertrams. And he was requested by these two guys. And on that trip, upon arrival, we're not sure whether they directed him to that area, because where they shot him, it is a dangerous corner that is known. So when they got there, apparently that's when now they started robbing him, which is what they usually do. They rob you either in the beginning of the trip or at the end of the trip. So with him, they started taking his belongings, and looking at the video, it looks like he was asking for his car keys, because usually when they rob you, they take your car keys. And that's when he got shot. And they then left the scene. Luckily, it was captured on footage. Now, what happened was that the incident happened on Wednesday afternoon, and the law enforcement, they then took part in hunting down these criminals, because it was all over on social media. It captured everyone, and they managed to apprehend one of the criminals, actually the shooter, in Soweto in a hostel, and the shooter is a 26-year-old, Zamoguhle Ngubane. He was still wearing the same clothes as he was captured during the committing of the crime. So he will be appearing tomorrow. And
I think we've lost Melitemba there. Unfortunately, he's frozen as we hear. Unfortunately, a very unfortunate situation there regarding the cab driver that was shot Gaza there. And that video, if you've seen it on social media, it's actually quite bad. Melitemba, I hear you're back with us. Is he back with us? Yes. Okay, we would like to know real quick, regarding this perpetrator here, the person who shot the shooter, you say he's 26-year-old. What does this say? If 26-year-olds are wielding guns in public places and robbing cab drivers, what does this say regarding the state of crime in South Africa, state of unemployment, because this is a young person? Generally, what does that seem like in South Africa? Is there an unemployment crisis?
There is an unemployment crisis, but there is also a level of lack of morality. And like you said, this is a young person, and a lot of times it is these young people that are not yet mature. They've got no respect for life. If you look at my brother's case, who was also murdered, he was murdered by 17-year-olds. So you realize that a lot of them, they are young, they've got no respect for life, and they get hold of these guns that are lying around, but also they are also robbing security officers and police officers for these guns. And it remains a big issue in our country, that we as civilians trying to fend for our families, we end up being killed recklessly by these people.
I must say, my heart goes out to you. Our condolences for the loss of your brother. As we wrap up the show, because we have a press for time, I would like to ask you about the court proceedings for the perpetrator, the shooter, for the murder of Ngaza. Does he have any previous criminal records? Tell us a bit more about him and the court proceedings for tomorrow, just quickly, because we're out of time.
So we're not much sure about that information, but what I can tell you is that most of these criminals, it's not by coincidence. If you look at how brazen they were, you would understand that this is someone who might have committed many other crimes. It might be that they have not been caught before, but tomorrow they will be given an opportunity to apply for bail, and that's when we'll get to know more information about their profile, as the state will be, we're expecting the state to oppose the bail, and that's what we've been pushing for, to say they really need to make sure that he does not get bail tomorrow.
So finally, Militemba, let's talk about the individual cab drivers now, away from the courts for tomorrow and the protests. Are there any measures that individual cab drivers are taking to ensure their own safety?
Indeed. So we encourage all of the e-hailing drivers to belong in groups. Also ourselves as the council, to say drivers, they need to be vigilant at all times. They need to avoid these areas that are prevalent with crime. So we are usually sharing this information and encouraging them to be part of informative groups to get this information, avoid people that are suspicious. Unfortunately, e-hailing drivers, the app platforms do not allow drivers to carry weapons, and we remain vulnerable because of that. It becomes unfortunate, but we're also giving each other backups. When you're feeling unsafe, you share live location to other drivers, then you get escorted, or you are being checked often until you are off that area or that trip. So these are other measures that we are implementing on ourselves, but they are not enough because we've been doing them for the longest time, and these criminals will always find ways to outmaneuver these measures that we are taking.
Well, that's been quite the insightful one. We hope to see what would happen. We'll be on the lookout tomorrow. Definitely, our correspondent will be live to just continue to follow this situation as it unfolds. But many thanks for doing this with us. We appreciate you for coming on. And once again, our condolences for the loss of your brother.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
You're welcome.
And that's pretty much it.
That's it indeed.
That's it
has
for
been
today's
quite
show.
the weekend, not just today, even from yesterday. Very interesting one, taking a look at the elections from River State up until today, and also a review of the 64th, I was about to say wedding anniversary. Well, 64th anniversary, national anniversary. But then again, if you're talking about anniversary with suffering,
that was it. That was the line.
I was going there.
That was the line. That's where I was going to.
Thank you for a very interesting show all weekend.
Likewise, Joe. Likewise.
And thank you to the viewers
thank you
for sticking around and making sure that you guys enjoyed all 3 hours each day here. We come again next weekend on Saturday and Sunday when we bring you very interesting reviews from inside of the week on our Breakfast Extra.
Absolutely. Until then, is good night, goodbye, and see you. You most likely will see our faces over the week, but we'll see you bright and early, Saturday, 8 a.m., a date with us. Until then, bye for now. I'm Judith at TV.
And I'm Azino Appeal.